Welcome back, everybody. My name is Tucker, and this is actually the second video of today. If you missed my earlier upload talking about the winners and losers of day one of free agency, then be sure to check that out on screen here. But this is going to be a different kind of video. This is not your typical, just winners and losers or deals that I liked or didn't like, because there was plenty of stuff to talk about, and I'm going to talk about it throughout the week. Some risky signings, some surprising signings, maybe some overpaid and underpaid guys. But there's a trend emerging from this particular offseason, this particular free agency class, that could completely change the way that we look at free agency as a whole moving forward, and by extension, the NBA as well, because it's making things even more crazy, even more unpredictable, and it's a mechanic and it's a strategy that we've never seen used like this in the past. And if it becomes a trend, like I said, it's going to have a gigantic impact on the NBA. And of course, I'm talking about sign-in trades, because we had two teams this offseason on day one of free agency. One of these trades isn't actually finalized, while the other basically is. But there are two teams that came into free agency with no cap space and were able to land two of the top free agents on the market in a loaded free agency class just by making sign-in trades. So I'm going to talk about those deals specifically and what it means for the league long term and what this trend could mean for the league long term. So the two trades I'm talking about obviously are Jimmy Butler to the Miami Heat and D'Angelo Russell to the Golden State Warriors. And I'm going to talk about Jimmy Butler first. We're going to go back really to kind of where this started, because the team initially that was rumored to be trying to make a sign and trade situation work with the Philadelphia 76ers was actually the Houston Rockets. And they were saying, hey, we've got some assets. We've got Eric Gordon. We've got Clint Capella. We can just give you those guys, or we can turn them into first-round picks in exchange for Jimmy Butler, because we want him to be here. We're trying to convince him to sign with us. And that way you don't lose him for nothing. Just sign and trade him to us, and then you guys can at least get value back. But it was a really strange circumstance, because the Rockets really didn't have anything to stand on leverage-wise, because they couldn't threaten to sign Jimmy Butler outright and then the Sixers lose him for nothing, because they didn't have the cap space. So it didn't seem like all that realistic of an expectation that they would actually be able to get Jimmy Butler. But then over the last 48 hours or so, there were rumors swirling that the Miami Heat were going to get somebody somehow in free agency. And then the closer we got, it became more and more clear that that guy was going to be Jimmy Butler. And I cannot overstate how crazy it is that Pat Riley and the Miami Heat were able to, one, just get Jimmy Butler to listen to them in the first place, and two, convince him that that's the place that he wanted to be, despite the fact that they didn't have any cap space. Like, it's insane to me that a team that is as capped out as the Heat are, they're not even remotely close to having cap space, much less max cap space, are able to get Jimmy Butler's attention and figure out a way to get him there and apparently make it work as well. And again, the way that they're going to do that is by sign and trade. Reportedly, the trade isn't actually official yet. Now, to be fair, the difference here between the Miami situation and the Houston situation is the Heat actually have at least one asset, that being Josh Richardson, that the 76ers are interested in. And I don't really think they were all that excited about what the Houston Rockets were going to be able to offer them, whether it be Capella or Eric Gordon or draft picks or whatever. They were more so interested in apparently getting Josh Richardson from the Heat, because they realized, hey, Jimmy Butler doesn't really want to be here. We also don't really want to pay him a full 5-year max, because we just handed out deals to Tobias Harris and Al Horford. So let's get a younger, cheaper option in exchange, instead of letting him walk for nothing to somewhere. And then Jimmy Butler gets to play where he wants to as well. Now, like I said, the deal isn't finalized. As of this recording, they're still trying to find a third team. Initially, it was the Mavs. That kind of fell through, but they're trying to find a third team. They're committed to making it work. And the centerpiece of all this is going to be Josh Richardson, plus some kind of salary going somewhere for Jimmy Butler to go to the Miami Heat in a sign and trade. And this was just an incredible turn of events, that this is something that they were able to make happen. But again, it speaks to how persuasive Pat Riley can be in a free agency situation, and how attractive playing in Miami and for the Heat can be for certain players. And this was a place that Jimmy Butler was always interested in playing for, even going back to when he was traded from Minnesota initially. The Heat offered reportedly Josh Richardson and a first-round pick to the Timberwolves, and that's probably the deal that the Timberwolves should have taken rather than what they did from Philly. So this has always been something that he's been interested in, but it's just crazy that it ended up working out. And so that was basically what happened. And then, I went to bed. I was exhausted from the stream. And then I woke up, and somehow, like, this was so far off the radar. This is so far out of my mind when it came to D'Angelo Russell. Somehow the Golden State Warriors were able to get D'Angelo Russell in free agency, and it just, it completely shocked me because all of the rumors, like once the Brooklyn stuff became real, all the rumors with D'Lo were more so about Minnesota, and then secondarily were about maybe a reunion with the Lakers if they were not able to get Kawhi Leonard. But the fact that the Warriors just immediately pivoted from, man, we lost Kevin Durant, to, hey, we're going to sign and trade for D'Angelo Russell was incredible. And the way it's going to work, apparently, is they're going to ship Andre Iguodala to Memphis plus some picks in exchange for Memphis taking on that salary. And that's going to open up enough space for them to take on D'Angelo Russell on a max extension sign and trade, like a max rookie extension sign and trade, 4 years, $117 million. That's going to open up enough space for them to be able to take on D'Lo and add him to their roster and sacrifice Andre Iguodala. And this has so many ramifications. First of all, the Warriors getting rid of Andre Iguodala is a huge deal, especially because they're exchanging him for a guard in Russell. Apparently, Iggy is going to be bought out and then potentially go and play for the Lakers, which is interesting on a whole different level. But it's crazy to me that they were able to make this happen, because when you look at their salary going into free agency, even if they had bought out Sean Livingston and traded away Andre Iguodala for cap space before free agency even started, they still wouldn't have had the cap space to outright sign D'Lo to this deal. So it would have had to been a sign and trade this entire time. And it's just crazy that this is how things are working now in free agency. This is, I can't really recall this ever happening, certainly not twice, and certainly not to this extent with these kinds of big name free agents. And the fan in me is really excited to see how D'Lo fits in the Warriors system, how him and Steph Curry play together, and then Klay Thompson as well once he comes back from injury. The basketball nerd in me is kind of questioning the fit and how all this fits in to their long-term plan salary-wise, and how this affects Draymond Green's potential free agency next offseason. But primarily, my first thought is, how in the world did this even work? How did this even happen? And that extends to the Butler thing as well. Like, this is an unprecedented thing to have happen, where two teams went into free agency in a loaded free agent class when there are so many other teams that have a ton of cap space, and they went into free agency without any space at all. Zero. Because even after Kevin Durant left, the Warriors still had Klay Thompson's cap hold, and they're going to re-sign him to a max extension. Neither of these teams had anything remotely close to max cap space, and they were still able to bring in a max player via a sign and trade. And I understand that there are some circumstances that played into this. First of all, it's Miami, it's Jimmy Butler. That's something that both sides have wanted to have happen for a little while now. Pat Riley is incredibly convincing in free agency situation, and the Warriors have been the most successful team across the league of the last 5 years. So it's not surprising that those two players wanted to play for these respective teams. It's just incredibly surprising that they were able to make it work, and this is going to alter how free agency works moving forward if this becomes a trend, because the rumors about players potentially signing in one place or another are not just going to extend to teams that have cap space in that particular offseason, because it's been shown now that if you have an asset that a team is interested in, then they will sign and trade you that player if you can make the salaries work, even if you don't have the actual salary cap space to make it work. So like when Giannis becomes a free agent in 2021, or whenever Bradley Beal becomes a free agent, or any of these other, maybe even Draymond Green, whenever any of these other guys become free agents in the future, rumors are going to extend to teams that don't even have the cap space, and it's going to make things even more crazy and even more unpredictable in what is already the most unpredictable aspect of the NBA, which is free agency. And obviously this has always been a possibility. It's just these two things happening at least creates a roadmap and a blueprint for other teams to follow in the future, which makes it easier and also more likely that more sign and trades like this end up happening. Like I said, this could just be a blip on the radar. It could be completely circumstantial and coincidental that it happened twice in the same offseason because of the circumstances of these two teams. And honestly, you can even question the moves of either of these teams and how D'Lo is going to fit in Golden State, and the fact that they gave up a really good wing in Andre Iguodala for another guard in D'Angelo Russell. You can question whether the Heat should be giving up Josh Richardson for Jimmy Butler, and how all their salaries are going to work and how much money they're going to be giving him and his injury history. Like, you can still question all that stuff, but if this is going to be a new strategy that is going to be viable for teams to be using, then free agency is completely different. Like, if you don't need max cap space to sign max players anymore, then maybe that's not utilized as much. Maybe that's not emphasized as much, and it's more about just getting good players on movable contracts that you can use in a sign and trade, maybe in a situation where a team thinks that one of their guys might end up leaving in free agency. They end up holding on to them more, especially restricted free agents, because we saw Malcolm Brogdon get signed and traded as well, where they're like, okay, if you think you're going to leave, that's fine. We have your rights. We're going to get something from you in a sign and trade in free agency. So maybe that's how things are going to be different as a result of this. But a lot of things are going to change, in my opinion. Like this is a huge, monumental moment that I think that we're going to look back on 4 or 5 years from now and realize how much different free agency is then than it used to be, just because of this new aspect of the possibility of signing and trading for players despite not having the cap space to do so. And there you have it. That is going to be the end of today's video, and I thank you all very much for watching. Like I said, I did upload earlier today as well some winners and losers of day 1 of NBA free agency. So if you missed that, then be sure to check out the box on screen. I'll be coming out with a ton of other free agency stuff throughout the rest of the week, so be on the lookout for that. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Once again, my name is Tucker. If you missed any of my previous videos, then be sure to check out the boxes on screen. Thanks again, and I'll see you all next time.